Hi, Monica. Grant Putnam here. Figured I would just take the opportunity to try to explain the design quote that I put together for you. Um, I figured it was worth a few hours to put together a design. Normally, we would charge separate for doing a design, but it's not a big space. It didn't take me a ton of time, so I just went ahead and did it. Figured it'd give me a leg up in the competition. Um, but just something to circle around with. When we were looking at some pictures of projects that you actually like, this was one of the pictures that caught your eye. Um, these are all American boxwood. These guys here, okay. In the front, there's green velvet boxwood. All right, so green velvet's a dwarf boxwood. American boxwood is the more common boxwood. Um, but you have to pay attention to the quality of the boxwood when you're buying it. So we buy our boxwoods directly from a grower out of North Carolina, and that's from vetting and going to a lot of nurseries. Um, Boxwoods are like anything else. Depends on how you take care of them. It's going to give you a certain quality. So there's different grades of boxwood. You'll notice this one is about the same width as height. It's called a globe shape. And a globe shaped boxwoods means that the grower had to trim them on a much more consistent basis than someone who's growing like a hedge grade boxwood, which basically means the grower barely trims it. It's more upright, so it's more skinny and tall. And the issue with that in the Northeast is if you get a heavy snow, then the boxwood that has not been trimmed a lot doesn't have as many doesn't have as great of a branch structure. So essentially, it's loose and it'll fall apart with the elements of the snow and whatnot. All right, so just overall quality. Again, I can give you this address is one winding lane in Westport, but if you go look at these boxwoods versus most of the boxwoods that are sold in Fairfield County, these are considered like the very premium grade, and then there's going to be all different lesser grades or cheaper boxwoods that don't compare in quality. But I did mention our advantages. We buy it directly right from the grower down south, so we'll ship up a whole tractor trailer load full of these, and we'll use these for projects. Whereas other landscape contractors would end up having to buy these from a local wholesaler, all right? And at that point, they're paying double than what I'm paying for it, and hence you'll notice in the proposal, I had listed what typical contractors would have to charge to install this type of boxwood at your house, because I know what the prices are at wholesale locally. And if they did that, you notice there's a big price discrepancy. There's a big savings when you're buying them from me because I'm avoiding having to buy them from the middleman. Okay, so let's look at the design here I put together for you. Oh, where is it? Okay, here we go. So what I did was I went on Google Earth and I took an aerial shot and I put this in a CAD software, which allowed me to draw it to scale. So what I did was I laid the design right on top of it. Okay, it's a scale drawing, and everything is listed what it is. I'll send you a JPEG picture of this so you can open it up and look at it in more detail. But the basic idea is you have this beautiful house, and you need everything to be proportional to the house. So the first thing you got to think about is you want to frame the house with height. So I have a tree, that blue symbol there, and a tree over here, that blue symbol, on either corner of the house. So it's not blocking the house, but it's providing height on the corners to frame the house. I listed out a dogwood, which the Latin name is cornus. Okay, and on the proposal you'll see that. So that's a dwarf type of a dogwood, flowers pink. I thought that would be the best choice for this corner. And for over here, I listed out a full moon maple, which is a green leaf maple. It's really gorgeous. And those are the two trees I suggested, but I also gave you like 5 or 6 other options that will also work in those two areas. This way you can kind of customize the design to your likings. When I send you over the proposal on email, I'll also send you pictures of all the different items that I'm suggesting, all the different shrubs and perennials. This way you can kind of pick and choose what works best for you. Okay. Then the next thing we want, where we want height, is your front main entrance. Okay, your stoop. So typically you want to frame the height with stoop, and hence you'll notice here, 2 upright evergreens. So I would suggest something that grows more narrow and something that will grow upright over time. All right. Everything else along the front of the house is all boxwoods, because that again kind of mimics the design that I just showed you, the other picture in Westport. All right, but you do need height on either side of the steps. So same thing, I gave you a bunch of options that will work for height on either side of the steps. Okay. And then the other thing that I did was I put bigger boxwood. So these are all boxwood going along the front here. Okay. I put bigger boxwood, the ones that are marked with an X, 1, 2, 3. Those are slightly bigger than the other boxwoods that are in between. So there's a group of 6 smaller boxwoods here, 4 smaller boxwoods here, 2 here, and 4 there. So those 6, 4, 2, and 4, those are all the same size boxwoods, and I gave you 2 size options. My suggestion is going with ones for these smaller ones that are about 3 feet tall. Okay. I just think proportionally it's going to look right. The other thing you got to remember is that boxwoods only grow about 4 inches a year, so that's why they're expensive. But they're also cheap to maintain because they grow slowly. All right. Most of your budget, you're going to notice in your landscaping, are these boxwoods. But I gave you a secondary option of smaller ones as well, which would save you about $2,000 on the overall cost if you went with the smaller ones. But if you want a nice finished product, then I would go with the 3 foot tall ones, okay, which was similar in size to the ones you saw in the picture from Westport. Okay, so bigger boxwoods, group of smaller ones, 4, 2, and 4. Okay, so the next item was these 2 plants here. So there's 1, 2, 3, and again those were all the bigger boxwoods, so those were slightly bigger. All right, and that kind of marks kind of the corners of the house. I think that would look good. In front of these boxwoods, you'll notice I listed these as ground cover. So along this edge and through here, it's all consistent. And I put Liriope spicata, which is a perennial that blooms little purple flowers in August, has little black berries in September, October. But the main feature of it is, for this type of really clean design, it stays nice and manicured, low to the ground, and it's also evergreen. So most perennials lose all their color during the winter. These will keep their color during the winter. They'll die back about a quarter of the way, and all you do in the spring is you cut the top quarter off the Liriope, and then they regrow. So they do keep their color during the winter, which is a big plus, whereas most perennials do not do that. Okay. For some splash of color, so again, here the design is very clean, similar to what you saw, but for some splash of color, you have the option of installing some planters or pots with annuals. All right, so I had 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 of them, again, marking kind of the 2 entrances of the front of the house. All right, and then I also had, you'll notice, some ornamental grasses, and they're labeled in here, groupings of ornamental grasses. I did include some hydrangea, which bloom all summer, as a group of 3 over here. Okay, and I did have a group of roses, drift roses, only grow 18 inches tall, over here for color. So I do have some color in either corner. I don't think it's a bad idea to have some color. You're still going to have predominantly a very clean look with the boxwoods and evergreen, but having some splashes of color strategically located, I think would just only add to the aesthetics of the design. Okay. These hydrangeas I suggested over here, you have to, if you understand hydrangeas and you do a little research on them, there's 3 families of hydrangeas. I won't go into all the families, but basically there's only 2 families that are guaranteed to bloom in the spring. There's smoothleaf hydrangeas, that's the common name, or also known as also known as um, like Annabelle hydrangeas, arborescens hydrangeas. So, but basically, those hydrangeas will guarantee to bloom in the spring because they bloom on new wood. Whereas mop head hydrangeas, which is the hydrangea you see all over the place, those big 4-inch blooms, those 2 out of the last 4 years did not bloom. So if you get a really cold winter, they'll knock out the buds from the previous year, and those hydrangeas bloom mostly on last year's wood. So I did include hydrangeas that I know will bloom, and these are dwarf varieties, so they're not going to grow too big and overtake the boxwoods behind them. Okay. And then these roses are my favorite type of dwarf roses. They're better than carpet roses. It's the family is drift rose. You can get it pretty much any color you want. But they stay low to the ground, only grow about 18 inches tall, and there's nothing that will bloom longer than a rose. So they'll start in May and they'll go all the way till frost. So if you want some nice color, continuous color, they're gonna stay nice if they're maintained properly. They'll stay nice and compact, so it will fit in with the rest of the design. Okay. Then I had three dwarf boxwoods, also known as green velvet, which I mentioned before. Those only grow maximum 30 inches tall. So I wanted to keep everything in this bed slightly shorter than this bed, so this way you had this nice profile as you're pulling up to the house. And then in between, again, some perennials. They could be perennials that don't offer a lot of color, that are, again, more like a liriope that's more of a texture item rather than a big bright color, because I know you're opposed to that. But again, something in here that's going to grow more of a ground cover, short to the ground, and look nice and keep in. So I left that open as options going through there. So that's about it. So I'm going to shoot this over to you in regards to the design. But I guess I would like to further discuss the lawn. Every new house I've been to, I've yet to be to a new house where the builder put in a nice lawn, and you have to understand that it's not in their best interest, because it costs quite a bit of money to put in the right soils and to do it the right way, and it's something they can always skimp on and let the lawn fertilizing company try to fix. So if you can get a good foundation with nice soil, you'll be way ahead of the game versus just letting them do what they want. I mentioned if you hired us to do the landscape install, then I would help you consulting or help you oversee the lawn installation. Probably makes sense to still have them do it, but I would just make sure that you get on the same page with them exactly the process of how they're going to do it. Within the proposal, I listed out the process of how it should be done. So you can just read through that and I'll explain everything. And then I also gave you the process of how we typically seed. So again, most builders will just overseed with a broadcast spreader. So basically they'll spread the seed on top of the soil. If you do any research, any seed that you just put on top of the soil that's not really penetrating down just below the surface usually doesn't really germinate well, and you get a subpar results. So what we offer is top dressing the seed with leaf compost. So it drops the seed down roughly 1/8 to 1/4 inch. Plus you have all the advantages of compost and the nutrients and everything that goes along with that. And from experience, I can tell you that it breeds the best results. We did probably about 20 lawns with leaf compost this past fall, and every one came in really beautiful. The one thing that's disadvantage for you is you're going to be doing this in the spring, so you're going to have to remember that new seed only has about 2.5 months before the heat of the summer. So a lot of that seed will thin out or die out during the summer, and then you're going to end up having to core aerate and seed the lawn in the fall to bring the lawn to its full potential. But again, I did list everything out. I gave you all the ins and outs and that on the proposal. If you haven't contracted anyone for the irrigation system, we can also give you a proposal on that. There could be an advantage of having one company do the whole thing for you. And the other thing I did mention is we do outdoor lighting, so it's something you could always do as a secondary phase. But I just want to make sure you knew that we did do that. And that's it. But I appreciate the opportunity, and we'll chat with you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.